5 seconds.
5 seconds?
Yeah, must have been 5 seconds.
I'm ready.
You are?
I'm facing the right direction and everything. Wait, I gotta pee. Brothers, sisters, and siblings, welcome to Penn's Sunday School, starring Penn Gillette. My name is Michael Godot. Matt Donnelly's on the road with Piff the Magic Dragon today. Penn and I are broadcasting from the Show Creator Studios south in Las Vegas. Godot's impossible dream becomes a reality. Penn and Teller have a whole bunch of new tricks in the show, and Penn is reading a library full of detective fiction, and here he is preaching love. Mr. Penn Gillette.
Yeah. Preaching love snuck up on me today. Oh, Christ, did it sneak up on me.
You were a little late arriving
I was
today.
late arriving, and I'm not,
Unusual.
Very unusual. Very unusual.
How's work?
I mean, I wasn't actually late for the show,
No.
but I was late.
You were facing the right direction when we started. I think you won.
I'm usually here 45 minutes before we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Today was 10.
Yeah. I was getting ready to start without you.
Yeah, that's been done before. That could be done. But Teller and I, our arms are so sore from patting ourselves on the back. What we have done,
Impossible.
having a crew that fucking knew guys 15 years,
Right.
and a crew that is throughout the magic world, I think kind of legendarily good.
Renowned.
I mean, when Piff, when Mac, when you, anybody have a big problem with props,
We go talk to your boys.
we end up in our shop.
Yeah.
And they solve all sorts of problems. And pretty remarkable. We said Friday, Teller sent an email at 9 p.m. Friday night saying, we have a new order for the show with 2 new bits, which means new lighting, new staging, new props, not new prop.
Talk to the sound guy. Got to have some things going on.
Yeah, Dr. Jonesy,
Lights on and
everything. When can we do that? When's as soon as we can do that? And Bert, our stage manager, wrote an email at 9 the next morning saying, let's go tonight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, just unheard of. Unheard of. So Teller had his back operation about Thanksgiving. And then I did the whole Penn and Friends thing over the holidays, and Teller was pretty deeply fucked up, but when you come to the pain and the drugs and the rehab and all that. And therapy, I guess, or occupation. What does that call it?
Yeah. Occupational therapy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to imply rehabilitation. I mean, just
But rehab is what it is.
Rehab is what it is. I don't know.
Working out to get those muscles working.
Yeah, doing all that stuff, and that was a full-time job.
Yes.
When you get that kind of surgery, serious surgery on your back, your job for the next 6 weeks is
right. Well, how well the surgery works is based on how well you work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The more work you put in, the better it is.
Yeah. And then come, January, Teller and I start actually working. And things happened. Things just happened. Teller he changed his diet finally. After watching me for 5 years, Teller went much more vegan, much more non-processed. He's getting there a little slower than we did. Maybe not a little slower than you, because you still eat chicken, yick. And Teller also got into the meditation. Mm-hmm. And Teller also had to deal with his own frailty, you know. You deal with the fact, your own mortality when you're in your 20s, but you deal with your own mortality in a different way when you get over 60.
Yeah.
It's a different, you've accepted the fact you're going to die when you're about 25, 26. But there's another sort of, I'm going to die soon.
The numbers start mattering.
Yeah. And there was a real personality change in Teller. Now, Teller's always been the most reliable person in the world.
Yeah.
He never makes mistakes. He's always on time. He says what he does what he says he's going to do. Always. No exception.
Yeah.
If Teller says he's going to do something, that's true like ice, like fire. It's a statement of fact.
Right.
If he says he's going to be somewhere tomorrow.
That's one of the things about your organization that makes working for them so pleasant. I know that if I say to someone, "Can you do this?" and they say yes, it will be done.
Yeah.
And I also know that if they ask me to do it, I better damn well get on it. Much easier in the other direction, I got to tell you.
So there's nothing to complain about with Teller. But that all being said, there was also a change, more equanimity, more constant in personality, more, more gentleness, more,
right,
just more there, just more aware, more mindful, everything. All this stuff coming together, diet, meditation, but
right. Same thing true of you.
Much more.
Well, that's what
I was going to
blame
say.
it on Teller.
No. I'm saying all that.
Yes.
Okay, those changes.
Yes.
Meanwhile, all those changes in me.
Yes.
That have come. As Glenn was talking about some guest he wanted to have on this show, and was saying that is a guest that I do not have not in the past gotten along with at all. And then just Glenn said, but that's different now. just a different thing. It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
And so there's those changes. And then there's also a complete joy of working together, which we didn't get to do for 6 weeks. There's never been a time we didn't work together for 6 weeks. So there's also that. So all of this came together, and we ended up in this incredibly fertile and fun period. Now, this is what is so odd to me. Letterman has his heart attack,
Yeah.
and it's very, very serious heart attack. And he comes back, and he's easier to get along with. He's happier. All those things are true. There's a major, major change in Letterman. But one of the major changes is that he does not think the show is important as he thought it was before.
Right.
Part of what you're seeing is this lack of obsession with the show. And we have all sorts of cases that you hear about where the hardworking alpha male type has usually heart, because we're Americans eating American diets, usually a heart problem or a cancer scare or something. And then all of a sudden becomes a nicer, more relaxed fellow. And it's because it's always a guy, a nicer, more relaxed person. And the job becomes less important. The change that I'm seeing in Teller and in myself is a kind of change that I've not seen documented or talked about. Because Teller came back not worried about putting new stuff into Fool Us, not worried about putting new stuff in the show, just caring more about the stuff in Fool Us in the show. You understand the difference?
Yes, of course.
It's a very subtle difference. It wasn't like I got a gun to my head, holy Jesus, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Right.
But it was coming back and going, oh boy,
the show's still
look
important.
At all the stuff we can do. Look at all the stuff we can do. This is great.
Yeah.
So Teller and I have been, in terms of actual hours, if there were a punch clock, working harder than we ever have. And it's completely pleasant. There's no sort of scramble or gun against the head. We need, this year for Fool Us, we need 13 brand new bits. We had 18. And
ready for next year.
when they called up, they're going on, we got to go through these. Now, every year, it's always us fighting to say, we don't need a buffer, we don't need extra, this is okay. Can't we use this? Could we show this again? Can't we do a variation? This time it was like, they said, we got to cut 5 away. We said, okay, well, we're going to just work on it anyway. We don't care. And now we've got, the show is it's amazing to come back. The gag I did in the show was we haven't done the show together for 6 weeks because Teller had the back surgery. So we figured since we forgot that show, we'd do a whole new one.
Yeah, that's
and the audience, it's clear that there's a certain crisp, tight style that we like.
Yeah.
Where the audience kind of knows that we just really know what we're doing. And these, with all this new material in, there's a sloppiness and a stumbling through, which the audience was right along with. They just really digging it.
The audience loves the feeling of fresh. And whether that freshness comes from you stumbling or from your attitude or whatever, it matters to them. Yeah. It cheers them. It buoys them along. People like that.
Yeah. And
as a juggler, there's nothing better you can do in a show than fuck up a trick. People go, Jesus God, this is live.
Yeah, but Glenn always complains. If you've seen, I was going to say names, but there's no reason to say names because everybody will know who I'm talking about. So there's no reason for me to get busted. But there are people that when they end their show, they do this gesture with their hands that they're trying to pass off as magnanimous, like, oh, look at me on stage, but they hold their hands out in a slightly relaxed crucifixion position, and they raise it up.
To actual crucifixion position.
And then pass the crucifixion position to then above.
Okay.
And they do that kind of sweeping gesture, which tells the audience to stand up during the standing ovation, to get a standing ovation, and yet they have deniability. Right? Because they're just putting their arms out like that. We've all seen this gesture.
Until they get angry about it and say something.
Yeah, exactly. They also do that. Well, then fuck you, as one entertainer said when did not get a standing ovation, which makes me laugh. Then there's the even more aggressive thing, which you've all seen entertainers do, which always makes me laugh, of reaching into the front row to shake someone's hand and pulling them to their feet. We've all seen that, right? And for those of us who are show business savvy, which I believe is everybody in the fucking world.
Yeah.
This is funny because you just go, did that person just reach in and physically force a standing ovation? Is that what they did? So Glenn reprimands me all the time because Glenn says that when the audience is doing their final applause, I put my hands in a gesture of quiet down now. Quiet down now. And I bring my hands up and kind of, because when people, here's my analysis of every show I've ever seen, okay? They come out for a curtain call, their final thing where they bow. This, I'm talking about a more traditional play. And I'm applauding in my seat. I go, Jesus Christ, that was a great show. Fucking great show. I love that. And then they come forward again for another bow. And I go, yeah, that was really good. I really liked you. That was good. Then they back up and come forward for another bow. And I go, wasn't that fucking good? That's fine, but come on, don't push it. And they do one more. And I go, I hate you. I hate everything about you. It goes like that. So on Broadway, this is mostly me. Although Teller went along with me on everything. But at the end of the show, I would say, my name is Penn, my partner Teller, we're Penn and Teller, thanks a lot, good night. I'd raise my hand in the air and wave, and I would run off the stage. So the Broadway producers said to me, okay, you don't want to milk the applause. We understand that. But the audience is trying to applaud more and you leave the building. It's Elvis has left the building and they see you leave. So you have left the audience unsatisfied with their applause. They want to applaud more for you. And I said, I don't want to just stand on the stage where they're fucking applauding. And the producer said, you just did a show. You have to stand on the stage when they're applauding. And I go, well, I'm not doing anything. And they go, you're not supposed to do anything, but you graciously accept the applause. What you are doing is actually more arrogant than forcing a standing ovation. They said, what you're doing is saying, fuck you, you don't get to applaud.
Well, if it was good enough for Elvis.
Right, but Elvis would certainly milk the applause and then leave the building. So they had to actually write into the contract that Penn and Teller were required to take 2 bows. So we would take a bow, then we would switch sides and bow again, and then we could leave, And Glenn still says to me that there are times when I actually put my hands up when they're applauding to stop them. And he also does not like me starting to talk when they're applauding. They applaud, we end the show, they applaud, and then I'm going to do the thank yous to the crew, right? And to do the thanks to the crew, I go, hey, whoa, to start talking. Mm-hmm. And Glenn says, shut up until the applause comes down, then start talking. That's the polite thing to do. So I have trouble. With that.
Do you feel the same way with people talking to you after the show? Is there a level of compliment where you just go, please, that's enough?
I do.
Because I feel that when people talk to me after the show, that sometimes they say way too much. And I feel that way in the applause as well.
Yeah.
It's not arrogant, it's humiliation. Geez, I'm okay. Thank you. That's enough. That's how good the show was. That was
humility, not humiliation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's after the show, the nice thing is we've talked about this enough on the show that people actually come up and say, I know you don't like compliments to a certain amount, but let me say a couple of things. I also notice that I make eye contact with people up until they compliment me to a certain extent, and then I just start looking off into the air.
Right.
But all I'm leading up to is these shows with this brand new stuff. People were jumping to their feet even without me being able to stop them. And it was actually
try as you might.
because I was so nervous about this new material and because the new material is so aggressively far out. Mm-hmm. We're doing crazy shit. We are doing a trick that involves mostly passes and French drops, and then doing the next bit where we talk about how to do the French drop and what our particular tells are. And pretty goofy stuff for magic. And also talking about the theory of placebo and magic and stuff like that. Sure. Real theoretical stuff. And it's pretty out there. It's pretty out there and pretty crazy. And the audience is staying right with us. Teller and I have always believed.
The older you get, the closer you're getting to your heart. To what you really want to say and what you want to be. And
it's really fun. And it's so confusing to me as to why so few people, especially in Vegas, I don't think this is necessarily true for New York and so on. But so few people in Vegas, once they get a successful show in Vegas, keep pushing. I mean, really, and very few. You get the show, and I don't know why on earth you'd want to play golf when writing new stuff for the show is so much more fun.
It is fun.
It's really so much more fun. And all the stuff people talk about with golf and sports and stuff, all of those kinds of trying to get better and chance and trying to find out if you could learn this and da-da-da, all of that seems like much stronger in doing your show. I don't know why you would be a singer who then spent your afternoons playing golf instead of trying to find new songs and work them out and work on your voice and do all that stuff. It seems such a strange thing to do because this has been so joyous and so much fun. And I should say, while I'm breaking my back, blowing myself here, that last night, one of the most important secret loads into a cup with a ball from a finger palm, I dropped on the floor. A thing that did not exist yet.
So you think
in the universe
you should be practicing more?
I do.
Maybe if you're dropping stuff, you should be practicing more.
That's what I'm saying. We should be practicing more. But Teller said, when I said, "Oh, geez, I fucked that up," Teller said, "I'm too busy celebrating to even hear you." I said, "Well, I dropped." He said, "Yeah, I saw you drop it on the floor, and it did ruin that moment. And who cares? We had all this new stuff in it. It was really great and really fun. So we had a great time."
Well, good for you guys.
It was really, really, really fun.
Seems very satisfying.
Very satisfying. Very good. And Teller is, his back is still weak.
Right.
And he still has to sit down during rehearsals more than, there's always a chair there.
Sure.
How long has it been that way?
About a week back. When did it start? I guess what you should have said.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's like we need to do another take.
Yeah.
Did we lose it?
And it was it's really fun to do this stuff, and really interesting. It's also great that the people go along with us. One of the basic topic sentences of Penn and Teller, our goal was not to insult the audience.
Yeah.
And one of the things we decided to do was to just assume correctly that the audience was smarter than we were. Now, magicians, almost without exception, act as though, not that they believe it, but many of them do, act as though the audience is not as smart as they are. Because there is a culture, we've talked about this before of why magic is so masculine. In our culture, it's so heavily tied in, the Wicca and all that stuff, the magic with a K, the real magic, is very much associated with women in this culture. And the magic with a C, Vegas magic, is so heavily dominated by male.
Yeah.
And the men who get into magic, boys who get into magic, 11 and 12, and this is changing so rapidly that this will be like a time capsule. This is not going to be true in 5 years. But the people who get into magic at the age of 12 and 13 are, of course, and that's because everybody at 12 and 13 feels like an outcast, but outsiders who have a great deal of anger and want to say, ha, 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 I can fool you. So ha, 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 I can fool you, which on a 13, 14-year-old child is understandable, when that is still seeping into a 40 or 50-year-old professional entertainer,
right,
is kind of creepy. When Eddie Van Halen practiced a lot, or Steve Lukather, I didn't say his name right, did I?
Lukather?
Lukather. There's that big smile when they're playing the guitar. Like, wow, I practiced a lot, and now it sounds good. And there's a quality of jugglers of...
I was going to say, I'll bet that this is why there are so many women jugglers coming up very quickly who are very good.
Yeah.
An amazing number of them. They're, better than many of the men. It's really great.
Well, there's
no line. There's no subterfuge. It's all, I practice this until I can do it. Isn't this great?
Yeah. And magic, there tends to be this unpleasant domination thing. And Teller and I, this is going away, but Teller and I have been fighting that since we first started. Although I am loud and I am very, very aggressive, I'd like to think, and there are exceptions to this, but in our material, the aggression is never, we can do this, we just fooled you, ha, ha, ha.
It's pretty funny, though. Maybe you should put more of it in. It made me laugh.
And there's a lot of magic that really is that.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a lot of magic that is that.
And I felt, after 45 years on discussing and working on trying to get that we really did. I mean, we put stuff in that we said, I don't know, this may be too out. And not every time we've done that. We've done stuff that we've said this may be too out, and it was.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Uh-huh.
But the audience just stayed right with us. And after the show, they were like understanding and really verbalizing the very themes we were trying to
That's
cover.
fantastic.
Really fun. We had a good size audience last night, and it was just a blast. Is there something that interferes with your happiness or is preventing
Nothing. Nothing is interfering with my happiness. Don't ask again.
or is preventing you from achieving your goals? I mean, besides me,
Just you.
just me. Yeah. BetterHelp Online Counseling is there for you. Connect with your professional counselor in a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient. You can now get help on your own time and at your own pace. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions plus chat and text with your therapist. Licensed professional counselors who are specialized in depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, sleeping, trauma, anger, family conflicts, LGBT matters, grief, and self-esteem. Plus other things, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anything you share is confidential. I got to tell you, I worked on this stuff, tried it, and having someone to communicate with who is really trying to help you with your problems,
It's nice.
it's a really nice deal. And this is a really good way to do it. You know, I think that in a busy schedule and financially, it's hard to find someone that you can go to an office.
It's a couple of hours involved in getting there and back. And
Yeah. And you can do this with text, chat, phone, and video. You start communicating in under 24 hours. It's available for desktop, mobile, web, Android, and iOS apps.
Yeah.
Schedule video and phone sessions generally weekly, unless your therapist schedules more. Financial aid is available for those who qualify, secure, convenient, professional, affordable. Now, what the hell is it, Penn? Well, it's called BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com. Best of all, it's truly affordable. Penn Sunday School listeners get 10% off your first month with discount code
Penn.
So why not get started today? Go to betterhelp.com/Penn. Simply fill out a questionnaire to help them assess your needs and get matched with a counselor you'll love. That's betterhelp.com/Penn. Oh, that was so nice.
Did I miss a cue there?
No, you didn't.
What the hell is it, Penn?
Betterhelp.com.
Okay.
Now,
And
you
when,
know,
when did that start?
week back, last night we finished our show
Yeah.
and I was driving home, very, very happy. And when I'm driving home from the show, it sometimes doesn't feel like music is the right thing to listen to in the car. Do you know what I listen to? I listen to Blinkist. It's one of the best apps on
What do you
my
listen
phone.
to?
Blinkist. I'm listening to Blinkist. I was listening to, first I listened to a book on logic
Yeah.
and how logic can be used. And then I changed over to a book about connections. It was how the first woman astronomer, how those threads go to the future. And I didn't know that Kepler wrote the first science fiction. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
He wrote about a colony on the moon that thought the Earth rotated around them. And it was a speculative thing that it was not called science fiction, but it was actually an allegory.
Wonder who invented the term.
I don't know, but Kepler, it was all about that. It was a really good book. I really liked it. And listening to it, Blinkist, for those who don't know, it's a really nice way. They do synopsises of books. Now, some books you want to just dig in and really read every word of it and roll it around. And some books, nonfiction, and Blinkist only does nonfiction. You kind of want, what I like from a book is what I'm going to remember 3 weeks after I read the book. And Blinkist seems really good. Blinkist takes the best key takeaways, the need-to-know information from thousands of nonfiction books and condenses them down just 15 minutes that you can read or listen to. Now, I'm just listening to it on the road. I love it because it gets my mind. It's different. It's different. Different things to think about than music. You know,
Yes.
it gets me rolling things around in my head. I also feel like some of the books that I've used on Blinkist are stuff that I want to know more about because of the news. Like I wanted to read about Brexit and some economy things and stuff like that. I use it exclusively.
Nice shorthand for getting through that.
Driving to work and back. I know you could use it. I'm sure it's wonderful when exercising. I'm sure it's wonderful for all sorts of other things. But I use it. I use it just driving to work and back. There's popular books. There's this new Jared Diamond thing that I want to get to, Upheaval, Turning Points for Nations in Crisis.
Right.
Sea Stories, My Life in Special Operations. 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, he'll be on our podcast too. Becoming by Michelle Obama, which I've not read yet, but I might read the whole book. I don't know. The Virgin Way, Everything I Know About Leadership by Richard Branson. And then there's Outgrowing God, Richard Dawkins, which I read the whole thing, of course. Hacking Darwin, Future of Capitalism, The Threat by Andrew McCabe, The Way We Eat Now by B. Wilson. B. Wilson, I read another book by her. Maybe I should read that too. Right now, for a limited time, Blinkist is a special offer just for audiences. Go to Blinkist.com/Penn. Try it free for 7 days and save 25% off your new subscription. That's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist, Blinkist.com/Penn. To start your free 7-day trial. You'll also save 25% off, but only when you sign up at Blinkist.com/Penn. Beautiful.
Nice. This says Mary Shelley invented science fiction is the claim here. So
okay, I can see that too.
Yeah.
But this guy on the Blinkist was saying Kepler kind of laid it down as he built on the shoulders of Copernicus. And it was a pretty interesting thing. Pretty interesting
cool
thing. Now, the book I'm working on now.
You're working on a book. You're working on a detective novel.
Well, kind of, sort of. I wrote a novel called Sock.
Yes.
Which is about a sock monkey detective. Yeah. And I was pretty proud of it. And I got to tell you that, oh boy, Chuck Palahniuk, that's the way his name is pronounced, right? Chuck Palahniuk, who wrote Fight Club. I heard from Nicholson Baker. Right. Nicholson Baker, my favorite author. Why don't we ever put Nicholson Baker on this show? Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be great.
I love Nicholson Baker so much. And I've actually, Nicholson Baker does not go out much. He lives up in Maine, and he's very reclusive. But I will say proudly, I'm one of the few people to have had lunch with Nicholson Baker. Oh, I had a wonderful, wonderful time with him. He is such a good. How many books have you?
Just one.
Just Mezzanine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other books are great.
About it, I had to. So
yeah. Well, the book, the book about
a crazy book.
Human Smoke.
Yeah, I read that. I read Human Smoke as well.
Oh,
which is just the most frightening and horrible thing I've ever read, and I should never do that again.
I wrote to Nicholson Baker after I read Human Smoke, and I said, I'm so depressed. My whole world is turned upside down. And he wrote back, mission accomplished. And then he wrote this other book, if you want frightening, if you want frightening and horrific and just, he wrote a book called Substitute. He took a year off from writing and worked as a substitute teacher.
Wow. That's some serious research there.
Yeah.
I bet that's the most unpleasant thing in the world.
Yeah,
I'd rather read Human Smoke again than do that.
he put himself in the roster or whatever you put in the hopper to be a substitute teacher in the Maine public school system. And he was called 2-3 times a week.
Wow.
To go to schools at all different levels and a lot of different subjects. And the way I do my reading is I read electronically, and I highlight sections, and then I put them in a file called my commonplace file. Commonplace is an old-fashioned word. People used to keep scrapbooks where they cut out things from newspapers and stick them in. And it was called the Commonplace book. And I really was taken with that idea. So now when someone says something that I particularly like, or I hear a lecture that I particularly like, or there's a quotation, or any book that I'm reading, I pull everything, then I go back and read it from the back every morning. I read about a page of it. So it reminds me, because a lot of times, you read a book 10 years ago, and it's really important to you at the time, but it fades. And it helps pop it back into my head. And I'm now going through my the quotations I pulled from Substitute. And it is amazing. He has in the book some of the assignments that the children were given. Explain how media covered the Holocaust and what this meant emotionally. For ninth grade students.
Did he pick that topic?
No.
Just trying to sell more books.
That was the thing that was that's so interesting about this, because he's a substitute. See, that's what makes it so great.
Other people's
he's going into the classrooms with a culture that's already there. If he had been a teacher for a year, all that's about is him.
Yes.
Right? But a substitute is not about him. I mean, of course, Nicholson Baker, he does tell you what sandwich he brings in. And he talks about being in front of the class and the students standing up and him crying at the situation the students are in. And he talks about how he tries to do the assignments that he's assigning to the students and says, I am a college graduate who's worked as a professional writer for all these years. I can't write this essay.
Yeah. My daughter gets assignments that I go, I don't know what they want. I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
I'll help her go through it and go, wow, you did a great job on this. Turn it in. It'll come back a bad grade. You go, how? How is that a bad? It seems like exactly what they were asking for, but no.
Yes. And Nicholson Baker is just fabulous. And Substitute is a book about the school system. He talks about how if we are interested in education, you really want about 2 hours a day with 5 students with a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And but there's the child care issue.
Yes.
Which is what we really have to do.
They're at work,
Yeah, we have to kind of do that. So, of course, you homeschooled
I
Joey.
homeschooled my son, and my daughter for a year too, as well.
Really?
Which was so much more time and effort than I expected. You look at homeschool and you go, wow, it's all on the computer. You can do it all on the computer. That's great. That's not what happens. What happens is you sit down and you're a teacher for the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The stuff on he's working on the computer, but he still has to talk to a person. He still has to have the direction, the motivation, the help.
I can't imagine going through homework with my children who are not doing well in school. Is so difficult.
It is extremely difficult, and some of it was a great joy. Khan Academy teaches algebra in ways that actually make it enjoyable and understandable for me now. When I was in algebra in school, I did not like algebra. Now I really like math and algebra. I have to learn enough to be able to teach my son, and I'm fascinated by it now.
Yeah. It's really amazing. And Nicholson Baker says that the idea of homework in grade school and middle school is insane.
It is insane.
Insane.
It's so much time. It's so difficult.
And in high school, maybe a very small amount. But the stuff that my children have, 90 minutes.
Yeah, my kids did as well.
That I don't think, and they also judge, you have to look at how hard the work is just, I don't know that they're learning that much from it. I have to fix something here.
Busy work. Seems like busy work.
It seems like a lot of busy work and a lot of people trying to prove that you're going to a good school because there's a lot of homework.
That's part of your kid's problem.
Yeah.
You're going to an expensive school.
And they want to show off.
Yeah.
Look how hard they're working. And I think they want, I don't know, I'm not going to claim there's a conspiracy, but it has the feeling definitely that, if your children have homework that you find difficult, well, goddamn, how good a
They
school
must
is
be
it?
smarter than you.
And
the best thing that ever happened to me was getting put into a program that was independent studies in different classes. I had done well in school, and so they went, okay, well, rather than going to this regular science class, why don't you go and do what science stuff interests you? And I learned more in those programs than I did in anything.
Well, I had a different situation because I was such a bad student.
Right.
And my testing was so high
Yeah.
that they put me on independent study to get me out of the classes.
Right.
I was so disruptive, they wanted me somewhere else. So the teachers didn't really care very much what I did as long as I didn't do it in their class.
For me, at first glance, it seems like they pulled the smart kids out of classes to slow them down. Quit doing work, go play, was what it felt like. And it was really a joy. It's really a nice thing.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was just I didn't fit.
Yeah.
And I still look back and say if school had been harder, I would have liked it. But I'm sure that's me making shit up now that I'm older.
Yeah.
I'm sure I wouldn't have done as well as you like to look back and go, boy, if I had that opportunity now, I would know all of Shakespeare inside out and I would know physics, and probably not true. Probably not true.
It's hard to gather that focus when you're a kid. There are too many things you need to do.
Also, the idea of putting people the same age all together.
Yeah. Age is not what matters in a class.
But also, I just don't think it's good. For everything bad about being 13 is reinforced when you're surrounded by 13-year-olds.
Right.
And I mean this.
So, maybe the one-room school thing probably worked better.
But also the world. I find that having friends of very different ages is really useful to me throughout my adult life. It was very nice for me to have Johnny, who was 20 years older than me, and Piff, who's 20 years younger. And I think that when Mox, right after Johnny died, I met Matt and Piff.
Yeah.
I think Mac, maybe, and a few other people. We went to a coffee shop and we sat around. And for no reason other than it seemed right, I brought Moxie along because Moxie knew Johnny very well and studied with him. And it was Moxie with adults dealing with grief and love. And Moxie told me just the other day that was one of the most powerful days of her life.
Wow.
We were making jokes, and dirty, mean jokes and making fun of people. And our grief was complex.
Of course.
Our grief was not just we miss Johnny. Our grief was tinged with anger.
Right.
Our grief was also ridiculing people who, had called up and said, Johnny, before he died, said my magic show was the best one he'd ever seen. Playing along with that. And Moxie seeing that, I often think that when children were more incorporated into life, Moxie's spending more time with people who are 6 and who are 25, and 17. And, I think that might be a good thing. All this was building up to saying that Nicholson Baker wrote to me and said that he and Chuck Palahniuk love Sock.
Oh, wow.
Which just absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah.
They liked it. And the publisher of Sock. Now, my advance for Sock was 1/25th of my advance for my essay books. my essay books, Every Day is an Atheist Holiday,
sure.
God No, Presto. My advances for those were enormous. They were a living wage and more. If I just wrote those essay books, I would be fine. And my SOC, not so much. And the sales for my essay books are New York Times bestseller list, and SOC never made a dent anywhere. But the publisher of SOC, which was different than the publisher of the essay books, loved my fiction writing and really pushed for me to write more fiction, and has told me that whatever fiction I write, she will publish. And so I've been digging in on this book. I've been working on this book in the back of my mind, the ideas of this book, 15 years, I guess, 12 years. And finally, I've been sitting down and pounding it out. And because it is tangentially in the detective genre, I wanted to read a lot of detective stuff.
Right,
So,
you're Travis McGee.
yeah.
It's fantastic. Love that.
You read all the Travis?
Not all of them, but some of them. Yeah.
That's a Matt King thing. With the Deep Blue, what's it called?
Yeah, Deep Blue. Yeah, I don't remember, but I've got it. And
The Travis McGee books, and I also read the Parker, first of the Parker books, which is what Point Blank is based on. The movie Point Blank is based on that book.
There's a side
Hunter, I
to
think it's
this.
called.
Most detective novels are, I believe, inherently pessimistic and inherently dark. And you are so optimistic that I am interested to see what this turns out like.
Yeah, well,
I think that's a big difference between most of what I have read.
Well, I just read The Last Great Kiss by James Crumley.
I don't know.
Crumley. And it is really, really dark. And I'm going to talk about that. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to talk about that on Wednesday. Because for right now, that was Penn Sunday School. Cha-cha-cha. You become naked. I also talked to Stephen Banks a lot about reading and writing and the difference between that and television, movies, and live shows. And let's get to that too, shall we? On Wednesday's show.
Well, Steven's got a new book out, so
He does. We should talk about that. We should have Stephen on the show. I also saw SpongeBob. We'll talk about that as well. I love you.